Just sorry, I hadn't turned on the recorder before, but I'll start now. The parak that we are up to now is very well known, and mostly because of what will happen. Eliyahu Hanavi will be in the cleft of the rock, in a cave, at Har Sinai, at Har Horev, it's going to be called. There he will have a revelation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will speak to him. We're very familiar with it. We may not get there today, to that part of the chapter. And the truth is, when people look at Parak Yud Tet, chapter 19, that's something they very much focus on. A number of years ago, if it's of any interest, I actually gave a shiur specifically about that, about what happens on Har Carmel and then what happens on Har Sinai. We'll come back to it today, but we're not going to learn in depth that part of the parak as we might have otherwise done, only because it's the most popular part. And what gets shunted to the wayside are some other themes of what's transpiring in the parak that, since we're studying Nach and we're trying to learn Be'iyun, they get lost in the shuffle. So just to orient, in case you weren't at a previous class, so you know what we're up to. Eliyahu Hanavi, who lives the life of a nomadic existence. I was going to say of a vagabond, but that's maybe putting it in a low terminology. He lived as a nomadic existence, as a servant of Hashem, and 3 years of a drought, the issue of Achav, and especially of Izebel, the wicked Izebel, who brings in a culture of idolatry and of violence, killing off as many Nevi'im as she can. Many of them have to live in hiding. And finally, in the last chapter, Eliyahu Hanavi seems to successfully bring on side the people. And one of those people sounds like it's Achav, the king himself. Later on, Achav will do things that will prove him to be incredibly wicked in the vote and decision and psak, you could say, of Chazal. But we did see certain positive things that Achav did, and certain ways in which Achav, for all of his sins and crimes, like so many other people in Tanakh who are in the aggregate considered villainous, but they do have redemptive things about them. And it's too facile to just decide you can either paint them in colors of light or of darkness and nothing in between. Au contraire, the story is so much more involved. The last thing that we saw last week was in a shiur entitled Dual Identity, was that conflict inside of Achav, which side he's going to go to, about the idea that Eliyahu Hanavi needs to daven, even though he already has set it up so that he will have his prayers answered. I mean, set it up. He asked Hashem. He did this whole thing with the fire coming down from Shemayim. We talked about that extensively as well. And one of the issues that we were trying to understand is a way in which Eliyahu Hanavi was finding certain justification for the Jewish people, at least to be Melamed Zechut, you would say. He was trying to find something meritorious about them. Recall that he said, Vatasi botet libam achoranit. We analyzed that. What does it mean that he said to God, turn their hearts back, which on the face of it means help them to do tshuva, but another level also seems to mean you made their hearts go away from you because fill in the blank. You gave them free will, you gave them success materially, whatever. We talked about that. And we spoke about the idea that Eliyahu Hanavi recognized a certain level of what the Rav Soloveitchik's Rishimot Shiurim called the Bilbul Hada'at. Their minds, they were swept up in a very strong current, what we would call a zeitgeist, a spirit of the times that was about idolatry, that was certainly not about worshiping Hashem, was not about going to Shalayim, that's for sure. And these external factors may have very much influenced them. They were not really making sound decisions, and that did lead them into a terrible place of Avodah Zarah. But on a certain level, Eliyahu Hanavi is finding a justification, again, not to let them off the hook, and that's why it's a balance. I'm not saying they're not accountable for their actions, but at least portraying things as a more complex landscape, given all of the pieces, or influences that were bearing down on them. We saw that last time. We saw, various Perushim and the like. We analyzed that, and then we talked also about this idea that Eliyahu Hanavi, that's the seven and the 8 that we talked about here. The idea that Eliyahu is saying to Hashem, if they have no other merit, then let them have the merit of Shabbat. Remember, we talked about this. They have the merit of Shabbat. If they have no other merit, so they have the merit of Brit Milah. Remember, we said he put his head between his knees, and that 7 times he davened. So 7 times the Medrash and Psikta Rabbati says that's Shabbos, and maybe the fact that he put his head between his knees to symbolize in some way that look to the Brit Milah Hashem. They do a Brit Milah, so they may not be so religious, in a colloquial sense of it. They're not so religiously observant. They're not frum, but basic things they know Hashem, and can't you give them a break? And I just now reviewed 2 points, not just for the sake of review, but because of where we're going now. So the 2 points are, number one, the story about Achav is much more complicated than he's just a very bad man. There's nothing good about him. And number 2, Eliyahu Hanavi did not simply and exclusively try to put the Jewish people into the dock of, into the dock and stand at the bar of justice. He also did have various things he's trying to do. Witness the whole story there in Har Carmel. He didn't say to the people, "You're wicked. I hope the fire consumes you." He said, "I'm going to convince you that you can't be living in these 2 worlds where you're both going to believe in God, and also on the side there's gachkas, there's different things of Avodah. It can't be. Both these things cannot live together. You have to choose, right? Can't keep skipping back and forth." Those 2 points I want you to have in mind now as we enter into chapter 19, which of course, chapter 19 really, according to our people are concerned, the Jewish people, really begins with verse 46 of chapter 18. And you can see that plainly in front of you. Using a full Tanakh, that's where the Masoretic text, that's where we have a Masorah, that's where you have the break, yeah? So if the end of chapter, that we would call chapter 18, in verse 35, Vayihi ad ko vako, v'ashamayim hitkadru avim, v'ruach, Vayihi Geshem Gadol Vayirkav Achav Vayelech Yisraela. So a great rain, the sky got dark, and there was a great rain. Now it's not linear. The sky was dark, and it was a great rain, and then the next thing happened. It could be the sky was darkened, and Eliyahu had just finished saying to Achav, having told him to go and eat. Remember, he told him go eat a meal. After the meal, what did he say? It's going to rain. You better go home. And the end of that parak is, and it rained. But what happened maybe right before it rained, moments before it rained? Maybe it already was a driving rain. It sounds to me like it was right before, and that's verse 46. V'yad Hashem hayta el Eliyahu, v'yeshanei smotnav, v'yaretz lifnei Achav ad bo'acha Yisraela. The hand of Hashem was upon Eliyahu. So what does Eliyahu do? He v'yeshanei smotnav means he girded his loins, means he's getting ready to run somewhere. Okay, and he ran in front of Achav all the way until Yisrael. Now, what's the distance here? Some number of kilometers. Eliyahu, not a young man. Eliyahu getting ready to go, not in a vehicle, not riding in a chariot, not in the carriage of the wagon with, the coach with Achav. He's running before him. And that tells us something. The Yad Hashem was upon him. Somehow he was able to have, you could say, superhuman strength. He could run a distance that transcended the natural order of things. I'm not claiming it was an out-and-out nace. I'm just saying he had some kind of ability that maybe it was still within the ken of, it could be, but he was going fast. Faster than a chariot, being a horse-drawn chariot that he ran in front of it, yeah? If you look at the sources in the packet there, first thing, Rashi, V'yad Hashem ruach gvura. Sorry, I didn't put it on the screen in front of you. It's not fair. I'm talking about it. Should put it up. Ruach gvura min kadam Hashem. It was a spirit of strength from before God. That's what came about. And when this happened, let me just make this a little bigger so you could actually see it on the screen. Hold on a minute. Okay. Ruach gvura min kadam Hashem nitlabesh. Right? Koach larutz lifnei markava beraglav shleilech achav yechidi shechilek kavod lamalchut. Rashi here says he gave honor to the kingdom. vayashanes mutnav kimo vayazor ve'elo dimyon va'afu lo ba'el amed lashon zirus nizdarez ki gibor. He got himself together. Eliyahu got himself together. He got ready. Gonna have to do this. Yeah. But you should be aware what's v'shanes mutnav. He actually was running. He wasn't floating, levitating. He wasn't in a chariot nearby. He was showing honor by being a runner, right? Think of a royal parade, right? There are these people who always march in front of the king, the retinue. So that's what he was doing. By Shanes, Malvim, Kimeaz, Natali Bo Eliyahu. Because at this moment, the heart of Achav was turning towards Eliyahu. V'lachein kibdo kimelach. And therefore, he honored him as the king. Because Achav had done tshuva, and Eliyahu thought he would bring closer to Avodat Hashem by empowering him, by telling him, look how I honor you as the king, now that I see that you're doing tshuva. The strength and the power to be able to do that. So Rashi, it has nothing to do with the behavior of Achav. He's the king. Malbim, Eliyahu sees that the king, Achav, is doing tshuva. In one case, regardless of whether he's doing tshuva. In the other case, on account of the fact that he is now engaged in a tshuva process. Lamai nafkamina, what's the practical difference? Right? Do you have to pay honor to a king or to royalty when you consider them wicked? You don't like them. They're not good. So do you have to show them honor? This is a Gemara in Masachet Zvachim. Kol charon af shebetorah ne'emar bo roshem. Right? Is there any lasting effect? And it makes an impression when someone is furious. V'aktiv vayetze me'im paro b'chori af refers to Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? He left from being in front of Paro. He was furious. When is that? That's just before the 10th plague. Paro tells him that tomorrow, the next time I see you, you'll be killed. Right? Paro says to Moshe, next time I see you, next day that I see you, you'll be killed. You know, and what does Moshe tell him? You won't see me again during the day. You won't see me ever again, kind of thing. There will never be a day where you'll see me again, something like that. So of course, what happens? The Makat Bechorot happens, and who comes running? Vayakum Paro, right? Lila. When he found Moshe and Aaron, the Midrashim say he was telling them, Lila, I don't have to keep my word now. He was scared of them. Lila. Found you at night, not in the day. Okay. Even though Moshe was very upset, he didn't reveal that upset to Paro. He just kept going. He's left. Rish Lakish says, no. Actually, he did do something. There's no words, but he did something to Paro. He walked over to the throne. He smacked him across the face. Rish Lakish, Sitra V'yatza. Rish Lakish really said such a thing? Is that true? Vaktiv, doesn't it say also in the story about Paro, or Moshe v. Paro? Vaktiv, v'nitzavti l'kratol svata yaor. You should stand to greet him at the edge of the Nile. Rish Lakish, melachu, v'hizbir lo panim. He's a king, so you have to show him respect. Right? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Rashahu, ve'iz panecha bo. Right? So he's wicked. Yeah, you could be rude to him. You could be fresh with him. You could be obnoxious to him and arrogant to him. He's a wicked person. So the Gemara says, Eipuch. No, you're gonna have to flip this about Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish could not have possibly said that he smacked anybody across the face. It must be the exact opposite. Namely, Reish Lakish said he left and he didn't do anything because he respected him. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan holds that he did something, he smacked him on the face or something. Amar Rabbi Yanai, la'olam te'emat malchut alecha. For at all times, the reverence that you should have for the king should be upon you. Tiv v'yarduchol avadecha elai. Moshe, in that last conversation, heated conversation with Paro, he said, all of your servants will come to me. But he didn't want to say, Paro, you yourself will come to me. He had respect for the king. Yeah. Rabbi Yochanan says, Mehacha, v'yad Hashem haita el Eliyahu. The hand of Hashem was upon Eliyahu. By Shanes motnav vayarat lifnei Achav. The source is Rabbi Yochanan is actually from here. Yeah, the source being Eliyahu running before Achav. Sorry, I made a mistake. Let me dial back on something. The flip, Epuch, is the flip here in this Braita of Nitzavtli Kurtal Svatli Yaor. Reish Lakish said, Melech Uvizbir Lo Panim. Rabbi Yochanan is a Rasha, and you can be arrogant to him. Flip that. That's what gets flipped. So that Reish Lakish says he's wicked, he could be arrogant to him, and therefore Reish Lakish says he smacked him across the face before he left, right? And then you have Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Yochanan both saying you should be careful at all times to have reverence for the king. It's still royalty, even if you disagree with them, even if you think the person's a Rasha, it doesn't matter. You still have to have respect for the king. The normative halacha seems to follow that opinion. By the way, that second opinion, that you have to show reverence. This is Rashi. Okay, I don't think we need to look at it in depth just to see the Rashi. And go to the top of the next page, second to last line.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
1 second, yeah. But Yikra Moshe Aaron Laila v'Yomer Kumu. So Moshe Paro himself called to Moshe and Aaron, and what did he say to them? Laila, it's the night, it's not the day. And he himself went in the middle of the night, be'emtzat Laila, to go find them. V'yaratz lifnei Achav rochev v'hu ratz lefanav she'achav yichidi v'lav urach ara. It's not appropriate that Achav should be going alone. Therefore, the retinue, in other words, without Eliyahu, so Eliyahu ran before him to give him respect. And go ahead, please. I'm sorry. Was that Shelley?
Yeah, I got problems with my Zoom, so I had to call him. Sorry.
Number. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the question is, does this business of respect apply only to Jewish kings, or because some of these kings are just so wicked, and if you're going to do what Reish Lakish said, smacks Paro, that could really affect the rest of the Jewish people, and that's our history. Is we're always at the mercy of some crummy ruler who wants to kill us.
Not always, but often.
No, but medieval history, throughout a lot of history, especially when we're talking about the history of kings, foreign kings.
So your question is a great one. Your question is a great one. Let me try to answer. Reish Lakish is talking about a non-Jewish king. The king is Paro. The question is, who was in charge of what at that time? Is Reish Lakish trying to teach us disrespect for elders and people in authority? Or is he saying there's a person who HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself said is a Rasha, who was in the process of getting punished? Still, he was acting in an insolent manner. So Reish Lakish said, you can smack him across the face. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yanai, they both hold you can't do that. Even in that circumstance, you must not be disrespectful. Now, your question now goes to the next point, which is it permissible? Is it wise? It might be right, but it's not smart. And for most of the Middle Ages, this is a dead issue for obvious reasons. Of course, there were many Rishaim the Jewish people were subjugated by, but no one, I don't think, that I'm aware of, was ever in a position to smack anybody across the face, yeah? That's like, that would be madness. Now, it so happens the halacha, though, seems to follow not Reish Lakish's opinion here, but Rabbi Yochanan's opinion here, and Rabbi Yanai's opinion. You must show respect. More than that, we have the idea, I spoke about it on Rosh Hashanah. It's a bracha in the Shulchan Aruch, paskin based on the Gemara in Brachot. One should seek out opportunities to be in the presence of royalty, non-Jewish royalty, in order to get an appreciation for what it means to have reverence for royalty, right? And a bracha that's recited thereof as well. I spoke about it actually on first day of Rosh Hashanah, because it was time, I think Queen Elizabeth had just died. Queen Elizabeth just died. And the idea about going to see royalty and how it looks, the kavod of royalty, and having the year of royalty. And you have this based on the Gemara and Brachot on Nun Chet, to run and make sure that you see a non-Jewish king, be in the presence of non-Jewish kings. A story there in the Gemara about Rav Sheshet, who actually was unable to see, but yet he went to be there to be in the presence of the king.
Rabbi,
yes, Helen, please go ahead.
I got interrupted just on the tail of Shelley. Shaul got in an awful lot of trouble showing respect to the foreign king.
Yes.
And it
But
cost him
wait,
his
stop. I have to
kingship.
interrupt you. That wasn't because of respect. That's because he didn't kill him. And he had a specific mitzvah to do exactly that. You're right. But the reason for it was not stam to give respect or disrespect. The mitzvah was to kill King Agag. And the respect, the deference was, well, we're all part of the world of the royals. Someone showed me that the princess of Saudi Arabia married the prince of Jordan. This just happened like last week. There was a massive royal wedding, and there was a huge gathering in Amman, I believe it was, it could have been Riyadh. I think it was Amman, with tremendous number of royalty from all over the world, from Sweden and Norway and Spain and England. There's so many representatives. The first lady was there. The president was not. The first lady was there. And it's amazing that different countries, ad hayom hazeh, the royals are marrying, mostly, the royals are marrying the royals still today. So hasn't gone by the wayside. But just also the Maharsha points out, Rav Idols, Amar Reish Lakish Sitra V'Yatza Yesh Ladaktik. You have to be watch this. Be exacting. Demashma Af Zed Namar Baroshem Hainish Namar Mefurish Bekra Mosh Katuv Le'el. Right. So even this, that's supposed to be the Roshem, right? And the Roshem, the impression left by the anger that someone did something, what exactly is where do you see that impression is left from the fury of a person of Moshe Rabbeinu? He left. It doesn't say if he smacked him, it's not recorded in the Torah. Yeah, you understand what it means? Out of the kavod of the king, not going to publish it, put in the Torah, he smacked him across the face. It's not the right lesson. It's not right. By the way, another hint to this is, right, go find the king at the side of the Yaor. So what did the Mefarshim say? Remember? He went to go find him when he was in the midst of using the facilities because there were no toilets. So the Pharaoh, who was considering himself and others considered him a demigod, meant he could not use the bathroom because that would be a denigrating function that would show his humanity. He's just like everybody else. Yeah. So Dafka, you should find him there to put him on notice that the jig is up. He's nothing godly about him, and therefore you'll go find him in the restroom. But that's used here in the Gemara even as an example of kavod. You have to stand before him, means to stand with respect. There's a Rashi, the Medrash describing this, but that's not published in the Torah. Don't go find him, go to find him dafka in a way you can embarrass him. It so happens that was part of the cactus, according to some. Yeah. The Gemara goes on and Maharsha goes on. Melachuva v'hezber lopan et set up in Pirish Rashi near the Tarvayu Darish Miloshin Likrato Ayin Sham. Over here when Rashi had said you should go and find him, top of the page, he's birlo panim behind him and it's safli krato lefi gdulato. He called Likrato, be prepared to go meet him. So the Maharsha on that, what does he say? You should be arrogant towards him, according to that view, right? Darish lei mivnitzavta demashma nitzav lariv. Right? It's self parshat Shmot, right? Yatsu nitzavim means they're getting ready to fight. There's a conflict there. Nitzavta, maybe you could explain according to that view. Okay. Yes, no. Skip the next one. I have time to see that one inside, just for want of time. Right, etc. Mashmalei de Achav hava yechidim yichtiv bereisha de inyana Achav halach b'derech echad levado aval mipirush haradak nireh de shenisa v'haritza gufa lefanav ki ba'atzma chalukah hakavod. So is there chalukah hakavod? Says the Maharsha. If you look at Rashi, Melachim, we saw it before. Achav was alone. Now, why is Achav alone? He doesn't have all sorts of royal people with him. Did they abandon him? Somehow he's by himself. But the idea is you shouldn't leave him alone. Radak disagrees. He thinks it actually means that running was the honor, not that he wasn't alone, but that you ran before him. But yeah. Matter of this is you should give honor to the early kings, the Melachim Kadmonim who were Rishayim, like the ones who were mentioned. Paro among them. Can't bold this, but I'll underline it. Okay. This is very important. Perak HaRoeh, that's the Gemara in Brachot that we're not looking up, but Ayin Sham, I spoke about it a number of months ago in Parshat, on Rosh Hashanah, for the Gemara in Brachot, that the Malchut Ta'ara Ke'ein Malchut D'Rekiah. The kingdom down below is a mirror image in some way. It matches the kingdom on high. Now, of course, those of us who understand things in metaphoric terms do not actually believe that in a physical sense there is a king on a chariot riding around, and the chariot has wheels that may or may not squeak, and it has people running or angels running in front of him, right? All of that is a spiritual dimension. The point is it's patterned after that the same idea that the king, there's kavod to the king, and the king has kiviyachol, as it were, a throne or a merkava, etc. Right? That's what we mean by it, right? But not to take into physical into physical terminology. So you should not be mezalzel in the kavod of a melech. If you do that, you're pogei in the kavod of Hashem. Even if the melech is wicked, there's certain mores, certain ways of being that ought to stay.
Rabbi, how can you say this with somebody like Tsar Nicholas II? I mean, then it sounds to me like you're equating God with some of these horrible, evil people. I mean,
I'm not equating God with any of these people. Please don't put words in my mouth. I take umbrage at that. I know where it comes from. It's a good place that you're saying it, but Chalila v'chas, nothing that I've said and nothing I will say would ever be trying to put them on a par. The point is, the Gemara says in Masachet Brachot that if a person wants to understand the idea of the Malchut Shamayim, you'll see an element of it. It doesn't mean you agree with what they're doing. It doesn't mean you're calling them tzaddikim. They're not God, Chalila. It's just saying you see the exercise of power in the sense of royalty and awe. You can gain something for that and use that in your avodat Hashem. And you should. You should have a sense of that. And if you're going to denigrate their honor, then you're dishonoring God. Now you'll say to me, and this was the big problem. You're right. This is the big problem. The kings so often were tyrants. They were despots. They were horrible, wicked people. Nobody's saying, well, might makes right, or they rule by divine right. That's not what's going on here. It's just saying, do you see the trappings of the king? How much honor is accorded the king? If that's what's going on for Tsar Nicholas II, a big Russia, can you only imagine what's going on in Shamayim for Kadosh Baruch Hu? Tzaddik Hashem b'chol dorachav v'chasib b'chol ma'asav. We're not saying there's a parallel between the person and Hashem. We're saying there's a parallel between the idea that humanity pays such homage to the king down below. Imagine what's going on in terms of the honor and the homage due to the king on high. How do you learn that? Right now, and very often in history, you learn it from examples that fall far beneath the bar in the moral department, etc. No one's drawing an equation between those kings and queens and how they act and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts. That's the difference, in fact. This was always a problem for Klal Yisrael to be able to dive into Hashem, what they refer to as a melech, when the only model of melech they had was, or oftentimes the model of melech they had, was a horrible person who acted with wanton abandon against the Jewish people. The point is, but you could still learn something, not ethical, moral elements, but rather that the trappings of kingship, there is something we learn from the notion of having a sense of reverence. Our problem, Bizman Hazeh, is we lack reverence. Let me diverge from my prepared notes to throw in that you may or may not like the policies of the President of the United States of America. You may question the person's fitness from a mental state perspective. You may do that. It's fair game when you're asking that question. But to denigrate a person who is the leader of a country in public because they tripped and fell, Is that really what we're about? Is Klal Yisrael? Is that really what it means? People make mistakes. It could happen. Well, if he could trip, clearly he has something wrong with his vision, and clearly his balance is off, and clearly he has no business being the president of the country. Is that really fair game? Is that polite? Is that just on a human level? Like, I don't know. I know a lot of fine people. Sometimes their balance is off. They have problems. If the person Taka has a mental, a cognitive issue, okay, then that's a problem also. But also here, is there a mechubad way of saying it? Is there a derisive way of saying it? Let's see the person fall. Let's revel in it. Lo zu haderech, I think. Again, I don't control anything in media, but that we take a hit as Jews when we see that's the way that the world treats its leadership. We're waiting for its foibles and its falls, literal and figurative, and we'll see how we could knock them down. I take no position again on policies over here, on the mental acuity and fitness. I'm not saying any of those things. Just saying like that's what people want to focus on. Even Eliyahu could run in front of Achav and say, "Well, what can I do?" And I've tried to underscore this. I'll say personally, I hope I've been moderately successful. I don't want to say completely or even mostly, but moderately successful. Sometimes some members of our own shul have gone to Washington and lobbied members of Congress with whom we see eye to eye on certain things and very, very vociferously disagree with them on other issues, very strenuously disagree with them. And sometimes we've had heated words with them, but those heated words could not be with disrespect. They're an elected official. Morally, they're this and they're that, and we can't stand this idea and that idea. But we're learning, even in this story, that there's a limit. Eliyahu Navi, 10 minutes earlier, was calling out, as the expression goes, Achav and Zevel, and he killed the Nevi Abal, and Nevi Asher didn't show up, so they're unfortunately, still extant. Zevel's not at the scene of the showdown. But Eliyahu, after all that, he's running after him. According to the Radak, it's because he thought he was doing tshuva. But according to Rashi, it's the cover they have to give to the Malchut. Why? Because that's the Melech. Is a Rasha, Mushchar, a Menuvel. We know what's coming. Those who've read ahead or know from previous years, Navot, what's going to happen with that scandal. He's still the Melech Yisrael. He's not even the Melech Yehuda. Who cares about him? Who cares? The Melech Yisrael represents a lot of Jews. Okay, so just for consideration. Now we come to Pasuk Alef. The dutiful Achav comes home. The whole story about what happened, he tells Zevel, but Tishlach Zevel Malach Eliyahu lemor, Ko yasun Elohim v'cho yosifun, ki cha'et machar asim et nafshecha kenefesh achad mehem. Now, she sends a message to Eliyahu saying, this is what the Lords will do, and that's what they will additionally do. It's a vow. She uses the word Elohim, but quite obviously, she does not mean it in the Shem Elokim. The Jewish people in the last parak were saying, Hashem hu ha-Elokim, Hashem hu ha-Elokim, right? Hashem is God, Hashem is the Lord, Hashem is the Lord. And they meant the Shem Elokim as there's one God. She means Elohim, B'lashon Chol. She doesn't think it's God. She wasn't saying to be polite to Eliyahu. But this, of course, begs the question. It's a very obvious question. If she sent the FedEx guy with the message, why wasn't he just carrying a weapon? Just do the deed. Huh? But she didn't. She sent him this note. And he runs away as a result of it. Look at the Malbim, next source. Lama lo harga oto techef. I mean, she could have just killed him. Batishlach Zevel. You know why she did that? Ra'ata ki lev achav note Eliyahu umatzdiko. Her husband came home and he's all, as we would say in my house, tzehitzt. Eliyahu is really amazing. I mean, he's a great Rebbe. He should really be our Rebbe. Maybe we should invite him to give a shiur. Maybe we should have him here. Maybe he could do something for us. Right? So she decided she's not going to kill him off immediately, right? Since you brought him up, by the way, lahavdil elef alfei avdalak, but just again in terms of the dynamic of king, queen, and now someone else who's mixing in, who's not part of the royal family, but who might get to have a lot of influence. Since you mentioned the name of said czar, the name Rasputin mean anything to anybody? Read up on this stat, okay? Yeah, with the Romanovs, what happens at the end there involving Rasputin, who has very little to do with royalty. He's a traveling itinerant preacher. He's a vagabond. He's okay, he's a mystic, and so on and so forth. Yeah, could have just, maybe the Malbim is writing this because he knows about it. I don't know. But you can just read it in here. She realized, my husband thinks Eliyahu is something special. I cannot kill him right this minute because my husband is on his side. But she figures, give me one night with my husband, I'll turn him back onto my side. In the meantime, Pasuk Gimel, Vayar, Vayakom Vayelech El Nafsho. Note the three verbs together implies A, B, C, right? It's going. Vayar, Vayakom Vayelech El Nafsho. He went to save his life. Vayavo Be'er Sheva Shel Yehuda V'Yanach Et Na'aro Sham. If you're Eliyahu, what else would you be doing if you weren't running away? Logically, stay to teach the people. Send the message back with the malach. I'd like to meet with you. I don't know. How about I just davened and davened and davened and look what, just 7 times, and now it's raining, it's pouring outside. How about another tefillah? Maybe now I could just daven again. It's a bit mysterious. No, he saw and he ran away. It's interesting. He left. How come? Maybe he was waiting for Hashem to speak to him and he didn't. How about a tefillah that Izabel that night should have balayla hahu? She could have a heart attack or something. Maybe she could have a stroke. Maybe she could slip and fall and die. Maybe. But instead, after everything has happened, there's still evil in the world. Izabel still can send emissaries, can find him. I mean, he wasn't so far away, right? He just ran to where they are. But she sends an emissary, tell him, I'm going to kill him tomorrow. So, okay, I'm leaving. That's also the Malbim's question. Back in the source of Shilot, Ma'u Vayar, Mara'a, Ma'u Alashon, Ve'elech Nafsho. He went to his soul. Vayar, Rab Ruach HaKodsho, Ki Achol Tuchal. He saw, right, that there was something that he could do. He saw in his Ruach HaKodesh. I'm not exactly sure what Ki Achol Tuchal means. If it means it could be that she was going to be successful the next day, or if he thought he could get away from it. I'm really not 100% sure what he means. But then it says, Eliyahu was a person who engaged in hitbodedut, meditative solitude, right? Most of his days, he was out there. He was working on himself to complete himself, right? The Malbim is writing this. You can find this in Rabbi Nachman Breslaver as well, and other among the Hasidim. The notion of hitbodedut, to go out to be alone somewhere in order to be in solitude, to develop oneself spiritually. So he had come into town when he needed to, but then he was going back because that's where he always lived. According to this view of the Malbim, he wasn't living on the lam for 3 years because of the drought, hiding. It's because he always lived that way, out in the wild. Lahavdil, Alef, Alfei, Havdalot, Thoreau. I don't want to be with all these people, with all these things. He had to develop himself in his spirituality. He's leaving. He's not going to do this. I mean, I pick on Thoreau because of Walden, but you could have picked, I don't know, many Hasidic Rebbes, etc. We talked about that before. We'll come back to it another time. Eliyahu, Elisha, they're the Rebbes in many ways. They're doing what things later that Rebbes would lay claim to, would do, would be. Okay, we'll come back to it. What did he see? He saw everything he did didn't work. It turned to ashes and cinder in his hands. He's leaving. He had enough. It didn't work. Therefore, he said, you know what? The only thing I can do now is work on myself. Dot Mikra thinks, by the way, very simply, Vayelech el nafsho means he went to save his own life. The nefesh sometimes just refers to the faculty of being alive, of breathing. And okay, that's what he was doing. But according to the Malbim, it was a spiritual quest. You know, I'm done. I couldn't, you know, that's they say, I think it's the name of Rav Yisrael Salanter. I'm not sure if it's him, but the name Bali Musar like to say this, right? I thought I could change the world. Then I saw I couldn't change the world. So I decided I'll just change my city. And I saw I couldn't do that. So I said, change my family. And I couldn't do that. So I decided, okay, so I'll just change myself. It's like the Olam Katan of the person. It's all I'm able to do. It's all he's able to do. It's all she's able to do. It's something. Yeah. So that's Eliyahu. He withdrew within himself. V'hagam shebal ir Beersheva asher liYehuda shesham lo hitere od mi'izavel. True, he ran into the territory of Beersheva, which means he was in the territory of Yehuda in the southern kingdom. Nonetheless, he left his nar there. But the truth is, it wasn't about, you know, physically getting away. He says that's how I know, because Beersheva was not controlled by Izavel. She wouldn't have been able to get a death squad to go find him, an assassin to go find him. He was gone. But now he realizes he's not staying in any inhabited place. He's leaving. He's had enough. He's finished. So look back in the Navi. What happens? He goes, and of course the bells will be ringing of that which we know and recognize right here. Pasuk Daled, verse 4, chapter 18, verse 19, verse 4. Rav ata Hashem, kach nafshi ki lo tov anochi me'avotai. Right? What is he saying to God? He's davening. What's he davening? To end his life. And where is he? He's in the desert under some kind of a plant called a rotem. Again, Dot Mikra tells you the official name. What is the rotem? And this and that, the scientific name. It's something that gives shade. It does grow in the wild, and he's out there like the desert plant under a plant. This reminds us of someone who goes out to be under a plant and who declares, kill me now, right? But there's someone who came before about whom that's true as well. And it's now, ring the bingo bell. This keeps happening. It's amazing. It's your Parsha de Shavua Dvar Torah is right here. You're going to talk about something in Parshat Ba'alotcha, and you say, this pasuk reminds me, a segue. You know, this happened later on to Eliyahu Hanavi, right? Everyone's going to say, who did it happen to? And you're going to say at the table, who did this happen to? You'll be thinking, and the person will say, oh, Yonah, obviously, Yonah. Someone before, Eliyahu Hanavi also, right? So turn back in Parsha to Ba'alotcha, just to see the pasuk inside. It's chapter 11, right? Chapter 11, Sefer Bamidbar. And here we have in verse 11, Hashem says, page 173 in my Koren Tanakh, Vayomer Moshe el Hashem, lama hareot le'avdecha, v'lama lo matzati chen beinecha lasumet masa kol ha'am hazeh alai. Moshe says to Hashem, why did you make it so bad for your servant? Why did I not find favor in your eyes to put the burden of this nation upon me? Did I birth them? Did I bear them or birth them? I have to carry them as a nursing mother carries the suckling child in her bosom. I have to do that, right? To get them to the land that you swore to that you gave an oath to their forefathers. What, do I have meat? What am I, a butcher shop? What am I, Romanian? I don't have the meat for them. I don't know what they're asking me. I cannot hold up, carry, and bear this whole nation. It's too heavy for me. Hargeni naharog imatzati chen be'inecha va'al er'e b'ra'ati. A tefillah. If that's what you're doing to me, Hashem, then kill me now. It's right there. Moshe Rabbeinu said it. Next person in Jewish history to say it is not Yonah, it's Eliyahu Hanavi, very frustrated, very upset, because everything he tried, he realized going to go to ashes and cinder. Did he daven before he ran away? I don't know. But clearly, as the day turned into the days, and now turned into many more days, it's a lost cause. They're still in power. The Nevi'ei Baal are dead, but the Nevi'ei Asher is still alive. Izavel's really running things. We would say she's wearing the pants in the family. Who needs this? I'm out of here. Yonah, we won't look up for want of time, but you remember what happens in Yonah? Same thing. The Psikta Rabbati gives us a long an excursus, page 2 onto page 3, about the parallels between Moshe Rabbeinu and Eliyahu Hanavi. A lot of them. And they keep going, right? So, and the Patach Rabbi Tanchuma says it's actually quote from the Yerushalmi. I got it here from the Psikta Rabbati, quoting the Yerushalmi. Who knows? Okay. Bei Rabbi Abba, Uvenavi Helat Yisomi Mitzrayim, Uvenavi Nishmar. So what is it? Zemoshe Nishmar. That's Eliyahu. Atamotze, second line. Atamotze Shtei Neviim Amdul Amiso Mishita Shalevi. Moshe Rishon ve'Eliyahu Acharon. Ushneim Goalim et Yisrael b'shlichut. Moshe Ga'alam Mitzrayim b'shlichut. Va'ata l'cha v'shlecha Paro. Eliyahu Ga'alam latid lavo b'shlichut. Hinach l'shleach Chem et Eliyahu Hanavi. Right? So beginning Shaliach is Moshe Rabbeinu. Last Shaliach Eliyahu Hanavi. Moshe Ga'alam Mitzrayim Tchila. Olo Chazur Mishtav Mitzrayim ve'Eliyahu K'shigalotam Min HaRavit. Me'edom Od Enam Chazur Mishtavim Elohi Chuat Olam. The salvation of the world is coming from Eliyahu. Moshe and Eliyahu are parallel one to the other. But Chol Davar. Next page. Moshe Navi, Eliyahu Navi. Moshe Nikra Ish Elokim v'lo Nikra Ish Eliyahu is called Ish Elokim. Moshe Ala Lamala v'Eliyahu Ala Lamala. Shnemar V'yi Ba'alot Eliyahu. They both went up at a various time. Moshe Harag. By the way, Moshe Rabbeinu went up in the middle of his life, not at the end of his life. Eliyahu went up in the middle of his life, not at the end of his life, in a fiery chariot. Remember, Eliyahu never dies, right? That whole line of thought that he didn't actually die, etc. He's still around. He's coming back. Moshe harag et Mitzvah Eliyahu harag et Chiel. That's news to us. We didn't know that Chiel was killed by Eliyahu, according to this drasha, right? Moshe nitkalkel al yedei isha al yedei bito shel Yitro kiren lo v'yochal lechem. Right? He was fed by a woman and women, right? They brought him to, could have mentioned Batya, but instead it mentioned the daughters of Yitro, foreigners, whose house he stayed in for a long time. Moshe barach mipnei Paro, V'lio barach mipnei Izevel. They both ran away. One because of Paro, the other because of Izevel. Now, just stop here and you realize the sequence. When did Moshe run away from Paro? Before he was in the house of Yitro. When did Eliyahu run away from Izevel? Here. So there are parallels, but it doesn't mean it's chronologically that everything happened in the same way. It's just that we're drawing, the Medrash here, drawing lines between the points, Moshe's life, Eliyahu's life. Yeah? And by the by, it's almost as if Eliyahu's life in a certain way is in the reverse order. So Perek Yudchet, the showdown is like the story of the Cheta Egel. Showdown Tivei Habal, right? There's an offering, there's a par, there's you can't dance on both sides, the dancing at, right? The people realizing Hashem Hu Elokim, Mila Hashem Elai, Hashem Hu Elokim. Everyone participates in killing the Baal, killing the 3,000, or at least Levi does in that case, yeah? And so on and so forth. Then Moshe runs away, Eliyahu runs away, then Moshe gets to Har HaElokim, the Sneh. Eliyahu gets to the Sneh. It's not the Sneh, but it is the same place as the Sneh, the Har HaElokim, and so on and so forth. Moshe barach ubala be'er v'Eliyahu barach ubala be'er dichtiv v'akamelech v'yelch be'er shava. Nice. Moshe ran. He got to an actual well. Eliyahu, when he ran away, ran to a well, the be'er shava, a town. Moshe v'chaser anan sheish tamim v'Eliyahu Allah b'sara v'hi be'alot. Moshe neman kimot adam yimutun elu ve'elu chei Hashem Elokei Yisrael shematik lefanav im yah shanim ve'elu talamatar, and so on and so forth. This is very long, right? Just a little bit more over here, right? B'Moshe v'yavor Hashem al panav. V'Eliyahu hinei Hashem uver. We didn't read that one yet. We're coming to it. B'Moshe v'yishma Hashem et hakol. Vaishmata kol, excuse me, that's last week's parsha and last pasuk, Parshat Naso, Uveliyahu, V'inei Elav kol. We're coming to that one as well. Right? Moshe Kine said Har Yisrael Har Sinai, V'eliyahu Kin Sam Lahar HaKarmel. Moshe Bi'er of Avodah Zarah, Simu Ish Charbol Yerecho, V'eliyahu Bi'er Avodah Zarah, Tafasnu V'yeh Habal B'Shachtam. Right? Moshe Kanai Mila Shem Elai, V'eliyahu Kanai V'yomer Eliyahu L'chol Ha'am Yeshuna Elai. Moshe Nitman b'Ma'arav Samticha b'Nikrat Hatzur. I'll put you in the cleft of the rock at the revelation at Har Sinai of the Yud Gimel Midot HaRachamim. V'Leo Nitman b'Ma'arav V'lan Sham Kidichtiv V'Rel Marav Vayalan Sham. V'Moshe V'Yevol Har Elokim. That's with the sneh. That's the burning bush when he got his charge. V'Leo V'Yevol Har Elokim. When on one level we'll see he's going to lose his charge. Another level he's going to get his last marching orders, which doesn't mean he's going to fill them all, but he's going to give them to the next person to fill them all out, right? And part of Moshe's mission, Eliyahu's mission is going to keep going. There's a whole long piece here. Yeah, it keeps going and going and going and going. What's the point? Over and over again, reinforcing connection between Moshe and Eliyahu. According to some of the Midrashim, when Moshe at the Sneh says, Shlach nabiyat tishlach, he's saying, send Mashiach, means sending Eliyahu to announce that Mashiach's going to come. Not that he knows the name Eliyahu. He knows it's going to be another day. It's going to be a final redemption. What does Hashem tell him? No, I chose you, and I have my reasons why I'm not just ending the whole of Jewish history right here and now. A lot of parallels, and it goes on and on and on and on. Right? The idea that there's a revelation that's going to happen now. We'll read it in a minute, but there's more than that. There's more than that. Pirkei Eliezer, the next page, bottom of the page. Rabbi Shimon Omer. On the account of the power of tzedakah, those who are dead will come back to life. Who do we learn this from? Eliyahu Tishbi. Mehar el har umimara el ma'ara. Hachlo tzarfat v'kiblato tu isha almana b'chavod gadol. Imo shel Yonah haita. The mother of Yonah is the woman that Eliyahu Navi goes to live with, and she gives him food. From her bread, from her oil, they ate, they drank, he and she and the son. Shenamar v'tochel hu vahi. Amar Rabbi Levi, hu vahi ktiv, v'hi vahu karena. B'schut Eliyahu achlu. Okay, it's in his merit that they had the food because it was a time of a famine. La'achar yamim chala ben ha'isha v'meit. What's the name of this boy? We don't find out in Sefer Melachim Alef. According to Pirkei Eliezer, Medrash Tehillim, underneath this source, the next one, Medrash Tehillim, Ben Sorfat Ha'almana, Hu Yonah ben Amitai. Not Eliyahu's son, but something Eliyahu did do for him. He gave him life. He got sick and he died. Shenemar v'hi achar v'me'elech chala ben ha'isha. Amra lo ha'isha. The woman said to him, right? Still same source, page 2, right? Amar lo ha'isha. Yomru kivata, page 3, excuse me, page 3. Amar lo ha'isha. Yomru, they will say, kivata ilai b'tashmi shamita. V'izkarta avoni alai umeit b'ni. People are already murmuring and talking. They will claim not that I hosted you, but that we had an intimate relationship. That's, so to speak, the scuttlebutt. And therefore, because you're so holy, that's the sin, not actually a sin because it didn't happen. But people are saying that, and therefore, and not like we saw before, that the very fact of his existence, Eliyahu's existence in her presence, was creating a comparison between the two, but rather that other people are now talking that my son just died as a result of a sin that we committed, you and me, but we didn't. Rather, I want you to take away what you brought upon me, meaning the ruin of my reputation. Give me back my son. Ribona sha'olam, lo daili kol ha'ra'ot she'avru alai v'al roshi, ela af ha'isha azot shani yodeh shemitoch tzarat bena dibra alai laksheni, right? Achshav yilmadu adorot sheyesh tchiat hametim hashever et nefesh hayaled v'netar lo shneimar v'yishma Hashem b'kol Eliyahu. Eliyahu got up and he davened to God. You know what he said to him when he was living with the woman, the Tzorfati woman? Master of the universe, it's not bad enough, all of the bad things that happened to me. Now, is he just saying happenstance? Or is he saying bad things that happened to me that you, Hashem, brought upon me. But now you're also bringing it, visiting upon this woman that I know that it was only out of pain that she just said what she said to me, which is obviously very upsetting, that she's saying that other people are saying bad things about us. Chalila. So at least now people should learn there's something called Tchiyat HaMeitim. So bring back the life of this child. And that's what happened. The child was brought back to life. To this reading of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, God forbid, lo aleinu, when a person suffers a loss, the loss is a din that was executed against them. When a person dies, they die. In most cases, I think, we assume it's din. Din means that's the law. What's the law? The law of Hashem, that the natural order of things is such that nobody lives forever. There's something called the rate of decay. It exists in the universe generally and in human beings as well. Ein malasot, din, 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 din. What is Eliyahu saying? But there is an ivut hadin over here. There's a corruption of the din. What's the corruption? That this boy is dead and people are saying it's on account of me. And you can't leave it like this. And if this will be the din, I'm davening to you to bring some rachamim. What's the ultimate rachamim? Tchiyat HaMeitim, because it goes against the din. Mechalkel chaim b'chesed, mechaya meitim berachamim rabim. It's actually how the tefillah goes. Being alive is a chesed, and actually coming back to life, that is a midat harachamim. So bring the midat harachamim. We need it, Hashem. Please. By doing this, people will see that the generation should know that there's something called Tchiyat HaMeitim. But in that also is they'll know there's something called rachamim. Have some rachmanis on me, says Eliyahu, but especially on this boy. What did he do wrong? Yonah ben Amitai is born in rachamim, reborn in rachamim. And now when you come full circle and you realize, and that's Yonah ben Amitai, who, like Eliyahu, who brought him back, right, was all about, he was a ben Amitai, he sued for truth, not for shalom, but for emet. And he's so despondent. Why? Because the people got a reprieve because they did tshuva and Nineveh. These wicked, wicked people with their wicked king turned out not to be so wicked. But what does that mean for the Jewish people? What does that mean? That they could just get out of it? They got a get a jail-free card. There's no consequence for what they did wrong? Well, they did tshuva. That's so unfair. That's wrong. They should be held to account for what they did. They should be punished. How could you not punish them, Hashem? Remember? That's what Yonah's saying. And then the kikayon. Now the question is also, does Yonah get the memo that the man who saved him, Eliyahu Hanavi, this is what happened with Eliyahu. He's just like Eliyahu, only he's not in Har Elokim because he's in the middle of the desert somewhere outside of Nineveh. It says so. That's where he is. He encamps outside of Nineveh, right, the capital of Assyria. Masechtot Ktanot, Masechet Rabbi Natan, Papa, page 4. Shlosh Nevi'im, there are three types of prophets who are out there. There's one type that sued for the honor of the father, meaning of Hashem, but not for the children. Another one that was just for the people, but not for Hashem. And one that was balanced between the two. Eliyahu tava kavod ha'av v'lo tava kavod haben. Shneimar kano kineti la'Hashem Elokei tzvakot. Right? He said, I was zealous for God. This is the psukim we know very well. We're going to read them. It's the Haftorah for Parshat Kitisa. Right? That's why this comes up sometimes when it's not like Parshat Parah or something. Yonah tava kavod haben v'lo tava kavod ha'av. Shneimar ve'akam nin ve'livroch tarshish lifnei Hashem. When he ran away initially, that was all about because he didn't want the bad Jewish people to look bad. Remember? So the Mefarshim all describe. And Yirmiyahu, he was in the middle. He took the side of God. He took the side of the people as well. So if you keep now reading in the story here, right? But the Malach appears to him and starts telling him he's got to go to the next phase of his life. Where's that? He's going to, sorry, I scrolled ahead too far over here. He's going down to the Har Elokim. He doesn't know that yet, right? So, Pasuk Hey, Vayishkav Vayishan Tachat Rotem Echad, V'hinei Zeh Malach Nogea Bo, Vayomer Lo Kum Echol, get up and eat, Vayabeit V'hinei Merashotav ugat ritzafim, baked cakes. There's like baked goods, a bakery over there, right there, it's piled up. V'tzapachat mayim. Then there's a flask of water. Vayocha, vayesh, vayosha, vayishkav. Again, see those verbs all together? It happens quickly. Quickly could be with speed. Quickly could be perfunctory. Ayin sham, the coarseness of Esav, when he gets the soup, he eats and he drinks and he gets up and he drinks and he abandons the Bechor. Vayocha, vayesh, vayosha, vayishkav. And he went back to lie back down. Vayashem malach Hashem shnit vayigabo. Vayomer kumechol ki rav mimcha hadarech. Vayakum vayochel vayishteh. Vayelech b'choach ha'achila ahi 40 yom v'arba'im laila ad har Elokim chorev. Again, stretching the bounds of nature. Whether he could run super fast at the beginning of Parak Yotet, now he can subsist 40 days and 40 nights on some bread and water that he took at the beginning of the journey. 40 days and 40 nights, everybody knows. Yeah, there's the parallel right there. Again with Moshe Rabbeinu. So he falls asleep there, and Hashem comes to him and says to him, "What are you doing here?" Vayomer, says Eliyahu, "Ano kineti laHashem Elokei tzvakot ki azvu v'ritcha b'nei Yisrael et mizbechotecha rasu v'niyecha hargu v'charev vayivater ani levadi v'vakshu et nafshi lekachta." Right? You can only read it in that voice. I was zealous for you, Hashem, the Lord of hosts. Yeah, the Jewish people have abandoned your covenant. We just read Midrashim that he's doubting for them. They do have the Brit Milah, they do have Shabbat. Forget it. Who cares? They might be going through the motions, but they don't really care. And you shouldn't. They destroyed all your mizbechot. Some of the Mepharshim point out it means that the nefarious campaign of Izebel included not only the slaughter of all the Nevi'im and B'nai Nevi'im, or the attempted slaughter, but also destroying all the mizbechot. They said, after all, we can't have syncretic worship, and here we worship Baal and Asherah. We can't also allow in the God of Israel. So we're going to destroy all the mizbechot, right? They're killing all your Nevi'im by sword. I'm the only one left, but that wasn't true either, right? So it wasn't true necessarily they weren't actually engaged at all in the Brit, and even Eliyahu knew that, but he said that doesn't mean anything. It's true that they destroyed all the mizbechot, but there actually is a mizbeach. Where is it? It's on Har Carmel. He just built it. Something very positive just happened. And I'm the only one left? Well, we learned at the beginning of chapter 18, there are actually 100 Nevi'im B'yodim, right, who are in 2 caves. And now they're coming to kill me. So what is the response from Hashem? V'yomer tzei v'amarat v'har lifnei Hashem. V'hinei Hashem uver ruach gedola v'chazak mefarek harim v'shaber slaim. Lifnei Hashem lo v'ruach Hashem v'achar ruach rash lo v'rash Hashem v'achar rash eish lo v'eish Hashem v'achar eish kol t'mamad daka. I don't know how much exegesis this needs, both because I gave a shir about it. We have many shirim about it. It's Haftorah to Parshat Kitisa. It's a shir that's posted online if you're interested. And everybody should understand the basic pshat, right, is sitting before us. Right? Hashem is not in any of these things. Not in wind, not in earthquakes, not in fire. Hashem is the still small voice that comes after all that. Yeah. What some of the Mepharshim point out, the pshat here is also related to Sefer Yechezkel, that as Hashem is described there as having a retinue running before him, these are the runners before Hashem. Like Eliyahu runs before Achav, the runners before Hashem are a great wind. It's not a regular wind, but it's a hurricane, right? It's a ruach, mefarek slime. It breaks mountains. It's a mountain smashing wind. It's an earthquake that follows. The ground underneath him is shaking. Is he falling down? Not clear. Tremor? I don't know. And a great fire, right? Where are these things happening? At Har Sinai, like the fire at Mamad Har Sinai, etc., right? Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayihi. Kishmor Eliyahu vayolet panav ba'adarto. Vayetzei. Vayamod petach ha'ma'arav hinei elav kol. Vayomer ma lecha fo Eliyahu. So, he covers himself. Who else covered himself when he was standing at Har Sinai? Moshe Rabbeinu, twice. At the sneh, he covers his face, Hester panav. He's worried. He doesn't want to look at Hashem. In Parak Lamed Gimel, in Sefer Shmot, also doesn't want to look when Hashem comes to teach him the Yud Gimel Midot Harachamim. But here the voice, it just says the voice spoken, V'nei kol elav. V'nei elav kol. What voice is that? Well, you know what voice. The voice from the previous Sukkim. No? Kol demamadaka. Not the commanding voice of Hashem from Har Sinai, not a loud voice, a still small voice asking him a second time the same question, but now in a soft voice, right? What are you doing here? Now, does here mean literally here at Har Sinai? Yes, because that's where the Yigimel Mirot HaRachamim were given. And here's your opportunity to think about Rachamim. And Malach Po Eliyahu, what are you doing here, Eliyahu, in this world? Is that the meaning of it? Yes. What are you doing here? What's your mission? Why do you live in the Olam Hazeh? What's the point? Look at the response. Vayomer. Kano kineti l'Hashem Elokei tzvakot ki azvu v'ritcha v'nei Yisrael et mizbechotecha rasu v'et neviecha hargu v'charev vayivater ani levadi vayivakshu et nafshi lekachta. Verbatim. Response, same tone. I would throw in same tone. Same volume, I would throw in same volume. If Eliyahu has lahavdil a mantra, this seems to be it. Everybody knows that in the 10 Commandments, it says, don't worship other gods. I shall not have other gods before me. Don't make them, don't have them, don't bow to them. Why? Because I am a jealous God. I don't abide you loving God and having a relationship with me, says Hashem, and also having other things on the side. So that's Kano Kineit Hashem Elokei Tzvakot. You're the Lord of hosts. You control all the powers of the world. And I'm zealous for you because you are zealous for you, aren't you? And the people, they may pay lip service Hashem Hu Elokim for 5 minutes, but I realize now in my moment of despondency and despair, it just ain't so. Yeah. Vayomer Hashem elav, lech, shuv l'darkecha midbar damasek, uvatu mashachtet chazael melech al aram. Here's your mission. We'll have to learn more about this mission next time, but go to the Damascus and find this person Chazael, make him the king of the Arameans. And there's your successor. All the people have to be killed. Whoever gets saved from the sword of the one will be killed by the other. Yeah. I don't even know what those words mean. Sounds like it says he's going to leave 7,000 people, Jewish people. All the knees that didn't bow to Baal and all the mouths that did not kiss the Baal. And you're waiting for Eliyahu and Navi to say, Ribono Shalom, don't kill them. Ribono Shalom. No, it doesn't happen. He's the 12 lines. He's in the 12th line. He's doing the work of plowing. Vayavor Eliyahu elav vayishlach arato elav, and he throws his cloak on him. Vayazov et abakar vayaretz achrei Eliyahu vayomer eshaka na leavi uleimi ve'elcha acharecha vayomer lo lech shuv ki me'asiti lach. Go to your mother and your father. What have I done to you? You have to understand what that means next time. Vayashim acharav vayikach et semet habakar vayizbecheu uchli habakar bishlam habasar vayitein la'am vayochelu vayakom vayelech acharei Eliyahu vayisharetehu. And they make a big feast. Everyone gets together, a big sudas mitzvah, and that's the end. And they leave. They go off together into the sunset. Whatever's going to happen next. Yeah. Let's look at a couple more sources over here. Yeah, please, Faith.
Because the portion talk about he didn't follow the instructions. The instructions were first to anoint the king.
We're going to come to that. Yeah, he seems to not go in that order. He does his own thing. Why? Why does that happen? Why doesn't he go straight? He's told an order. Hazael, Yehu, Elisha. He went Elisha first, and then the other two. How come? We'll have to come back to that next week. But a couple more sources. We won't be able to see this whole thing inside already. There's not enough time. But the source in the Yerushalmi and Masechet Brachot, there are 3 times that a huge wind arrived that was an unnatural wind to the point where it almost destroyed the world. One is in the days of Yonah, one is in the days of Eliyahu, and one is in the days of Eov. 3 people who suffered tremendously, 3 people who questioned and wondered why are bad things happening to good people or good things happening to bad people. So that's just interesting, those 3. And then there was a wind, and the wind is a very, very strong wind. right? They each have their own moment. He quotes for each one a pasuk. Yeah. And the wind, by the way, does three different things, but that's not for today. That would be a shir in and of itself. When there's a fast that's declared because of a lack of rain, and there's a drought that brings this about, there is a whole ceremony once we get to the part where the Yechidim have tried to fast and it didn't work. We bring all the people out to the street. We bring the Aron Kodesh, portable Aron Kodesh out there. We put ashes on top of the Aron Kodesh. The people put ashes on top of that, or the Nasi puts ashes on his head and the Av Beit Din's head, and everybody then puts on their heads a whole ceremony. And then they have a speech, and the speech is Divrei Musar. And then they have a Shmona Esrei with 6 extra brachas. And those 6 extra brachas have, I'm just scanning down here, that the 5th bracha is Al Chamishit Hu Omer Misha'ana et Eliyahu Harakama Hu Ya'aneh Etchem. Should also answer. V'yishma b'kol tza'at katchem. You should listen to your screams. That's the 5th bracha of the 6 added brachas. What is the 6th added bracha that you put in? The 6th added bracha that you put in, right? Because it's 24 instead of 18. Hayom hazeh. Oh, sorry, but I left it out. You should listen to you on this day. Sorry, my mistake. I didn't read properly. Baruch atah Hashem, shomei tefillah. That's the bracha. What is the 6th bracha that gets added? Right? Ala shishit hu omer, misha'ana et Yona b'mei hadaga, hu ya'aneh etchem, v'yishma b'kol tzakatchem hayom hazeh, Baruch atah Hashem, ha'ona be'eit tzara. 6th bracha, Yona. Right? Then it describes somehow that there is a 7th bracha. The math doesn't exactly add up. I believe the Gemara asks, like, how is that? Why did it say 24 brachas? Right? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, it's only 6. Right. I was right. Okay. So Al Shvidu Omer, there's a 7th bracha. Mishana David ve'Shlomo ben Yerushalayim, hu yana etchem v'yishma b'kol tza'at katchem hayom hazeh, Baruch atah Hashem merachim ala aretz. So the Gemara then says, some switch the tza'aka of Eliyahu and the tefillah of Shmuel. So with regard to Shmuel, it says tefillah, and it also says tza'aka. But for Eliyahu, it only says tefillah. Right? It doesn't say tza'aka. Aneni Hashem aneni. The Gemara says, no, aneni Hashem aneni, that is the lashon of tza'aka. That is a scream. Ala shishit hu omer misha'ana et Yona. Ala shvid hu omer misha'ana et David. Right? Michti Yona abater David u'Shlomo. I get it that Yona comes. Why is that Yona comes after David u'Shlomo? My time makdim lebereisha. Why does he come earlier in the list? Yona lives after David and Shlomo. In fact, so does Eliyahu, right? But there's an order here, Eliyahu to Yona. And why did you shunt David and Shlomo to the end? The answer is Mishum Debai Lamichtam Merachim al Haaretz. To end in that way. Last thing for today is here in the Daf al Hadaf, which is one of the commentators, it's the 20th century, put together like some idea. But he basically says, he quotes in the Ramami Pano in his Sefer Asar Ma'amarot, where he wrote, Mikevan sheyon hanavi hu Mashiach ben David. What? Navin gamkein mash'amru b'ta'aniot gabe 24 brachot mishum debayil mechtam merachim al haaretz hikdimu Yona l'David u'Shlomo ki achrei yishtapech kamayim marato shel zeh yatzitz uparach kisei David. Yona is Mashiach ben David. Seems very strange, but it might be a typo because the next paragraph says the parish of the Yad Yehuda, I'll be parish Yad Yehuda ba'asar ma'amarat sham, parish haramami pano atirat sagamar hanam mishum debayla michtam merachim ala aretz derot salomar ki atid lavo seder hadvarim yiyeh. In the future, the order will be shemashiach ben Yosef hu Yona, yavo kodem Mashiach ben David shemizera David u'Shlomo al ken ikdimu et Yona lifneihem. And now it makes sense. Eliyahu Navi is the Mavaser who ushers in Mashiach. So Eliyahu, Yona, Mashiach ben Yosef, and then comes Mashiach ben David. That's from the Zerah of David and Shlomo. That's the order, right? This is interesting. That again, we're playing around with these people as, is Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, right? And amazing that Mashiach ben Yosef, who did Mashiach ben Yosef? It is Yonah ben Amitai. He's going to come back as Mashiach ben Yosef. So let me ask you, who gave him his life? Eliyahu Navi. He's the Mavaser. Lifnei bo yom Hashem, Agalav Anora. Comes Eliyahu. How does he come? First, he gave him his life. Yeah. It quotes also here that the Shar HaGilgulim, it says also Shar HaGilgulim of the Arizal, this idea that the manner that was called the tipa, the drop of Yosef, it was given to Eliyahu gave to Yonah ben Amittai when he gave him life again. And that's what the secret is in the Zohar when it says Tana Yonah mecheled Eliyahu ka'ati. Yonah came from the army of Eliyahu. Amar udvar shemaficha emet. Yeah, and that's the secret of what they said. Tana de Eliyahu oto anar shechiyete Mashiach ben Yosefu kiliyotem mitipat Yosef achein huyi Mashiach ben Yosef adkan devarav v'hukan nizkar le'el. Yeah, what emerges? This boy is a Mashiach ben Yosef, who, like Mashiach ben David, will come at the end of days. Yonah ben Amittai still alive also? How many people are still alive till today? Minastam, it means whoever's Mashiach ben Yosef will be in the manner of Yonah ben Amittai. In the manner of. Eliyahu Hanavi, he's still going, and he'll be the Mavaser, that's Mashiach ben Yosef. But really, I know him, because I actually brought him back to life in an earlier Gilgul when he was Yonah ben Amittai, who I gave him at that time. What I transferred to him was the tipa of Yosef, to be Mashiach ben Yosef. Adkan for today. Adkan for this unit. Join us next week, God willing. Same time, same channel. And after that, we're going to go on a little hiatus. So God willing, join me for next week. It's all we have time for today. If you're having a great day and great learning, we'll meet, God willing, for those who are in the Monday Shir at 9:15, or we continue Chumash B'Iyun at that time. Be well.